We are good. Good morning. The air conditioning works in this building. That is a good thing. And so grateful to be here. And thank you for that song selection. It connects so beautifully with this passage. I've had so much fun this week in this strange passage. Are you familiar with this passage about this guy called Legion of demons and Jesus coming? It would make a great horror film, would it not? It's a movie about it. I didn't know that. So it has been made into a film. It is an interesting passage. And when I started reading, I'm going, Lord, what do you do with this? Like, how do we engage this? But it's beautiful, isn't it? This amazing passage where Jesus, first of all, says he crosses over to the other side. Did you know that there's actually 4 times in the scriptures, in the Gospels, where it says Jesus crossed over to the other side? 2 of them were actually when he fed 4,000 and 5,000. But there's something about this idea of crossing over the waters. The waters actually represent chaos. They're often called the chaos waters in the Jewish lore. Waters were not something to go swim across and have fun and enjoy. They were known as something scary and something evil. And remember all the stories of Jesus going on a boat and storms rise up? It's the chaos waters come to get you. Yet Jesus chooses to go through the chaos to cross over to the other side. Now, there's many ways we can look at crossing over. There's a literal crossing. He took a boat and crossed over literally. But there's also the idea of choosing to cross through evil or into a space of evil to make it good. And there's also a crossing over to go on mission. And the beauty of this is we think about our own lives and what God may be calling us to. Sometimes I think, God, are you calling me to cross over into something? To cross into a space of people that I don't know or may not like or may be afraid of. And oftentimes we're called, will you cross over? And Jesus here decides. And 4 times in the Gospels, it says he chooses to cross over into spaces. Am I ready to listen to what God has for me to cross over to wherever he wants me to be? Maybe just to cross over the street to a neighbor that I don't quite like or I'm not sure who they are. Cross over and have a conversation with them and love them. It's a fascinating thing. We could have a whole message on crossing over. We won't, though. But then he engages with this man. And if you know Jesus, he often, even though he speaks to the crowds, he often wants to talk to that person. Maybe you can think of all kinds of stories where he wants to go and talk to this guy named Nicodemus, or one time he talks to a woman at the well. He's very personal and intentional. He wants that person to have his full and utter attention. And he crosses over and he meets this man. He wants to get to know this man. And this man, though, no longer knows who he is. Because when he wants to know his name, it's the name that comes out as Legion. The man has been fully given over to the demons, and who knows how it happened. Maybe he began to give his life over to something, and over time, this just totally controlled him. He no longer had a name. He no longer had his identity. His identity was taken over by Legion. Thousands, perhaps, and he didn't know who he was, and Jesus wanted to know who this man was. You know, something about declaring someone's name at that time gave you power over them. You tried to declare their name because a name meant something. A name meant, I know you. Like names today, it's like, it sounds cute, and I like your name, and how parents choose names today, it's like, it was kind of nice. But back then, a name was really important. A name declared something about you. We have genealogies in the Bible declaring names. Why? Because your family of origin said things about you. Names were critical. And to give someone's name, you try to get up on them. You're kind of saying, I know you, and I'm going to control you. And in this story, first we have the legion, the demons, declaring, Jesus, the Most High God, who are you? And they're trying to get one up on Jesus, but Jesus doesn't flinch. He goes, what is your name? And I think in that, Jesus wants to know the man's actual name. He wants to know. But the response that comes out is, we are Legion. And Jesus now takes the upper hand. He cannot be controlled. And he gets this man and he frees him. And at the end of the beautifulness of the story, this man is sitting at Jesus' feet. It says, clothed and in his right mind. He has found his identity again because Jesus shows up for him. And this is a beautiful story. And there's these big themes in the scripture that could be so fun to look at. And first of all, it's Jesus' sovereignty over the spiritual realm. The spiritual realm, the evil could not control him. And many people, all religions will say, well, there's this Jesus character. They would say he's real. And what do most people say about Jesus? He was a good man, he was a good teacher, and he was a prophet. But in this passage, you cannot get around the fact that, no, he is the creator of all things, and not even the evil forces can control him. This is beyond being a good teacher and a prophet. He has authority over everything on the heavenly realms and on the earth. And there's a whole theme of that. He enters into the most darkest of places, and the darkest of places cannot control him. He just pushes through. But there's a whole idea of dignity and restoration of a person, right? This man gets restored physically, psychologically, spiritually, socially. He was, in all intents and purposes, dead. He lived among the dead. Oh, he may have been maybe physically alive, his heart still beat, but he was not alive anymore. And Jesus completely restores this man in every facet of his life. It's a beautiful theme there. Interestingly, there's this piece in near the end that not everybody is pleased with Jesus restoring people. The townspeople come back and they say, get out of here, we don't want you here. And you start to realize, as beautiful as the story and what Jesus does for us, not everybody wants to accept it. So oftentimes we'd rather stay with what we know, the status quo, than move into the new space that Jesus is offering us. And you also start to realize that oftentimes discipleship involves disruption before it can lead to our restoration. And are we willing to allow Jesus to disrupt our lives so that we can actually move into a space of restoration and a beautiful place? This story has that in it. And at the end, there's the commissioning of this guy. Right now, you go. Now you go. It's a great story. And as I thought about this story, I thought, you know what? Culturally speaking, we have to kind of dig ourselves into the culture. What lenses did they see? And I want to walk through 4 cultural lenses that the reader at the time would see this story in, that we may not see it in our North American cultural context. And what they would see and how they would interpret this. And then I think it lands so beautifully for us today. And let's journey through the story and see what it has for us in that sense. The first cultural lens I want us to look at is that of honor and shame. Honor and shame. Everything in that culture was about getting honor and avoiding shame. And if you shame me, we have to deal with you. But we wanted honor, right? You want honor as a person. You want honor as your family. You want honor as a community. You want honor. This is what caused Jesus so much trouble. He kept getting the honor. See, the crowds, the community decides who gets the honor. The crowd decides. And Jesus was increasing in honor, right? He was getting all the beauty, and the religious leaders did not like that because as Jesus got honor, they lost honor. Right? And they saw this whole thing in that context. This was the culture. Everything was about honor and shame, honor and shame. That's how life was by default with them. And you look at this man. He didn't not just have a little bit of honor. His honor scale was 0. And his shame scale was 100%. He had no honor left. And Jesus enters into that space. The community had literally voted him out. He had to live among the dead. No honor left. No honor left. He was naked. He was violent. He was isolated. Living among the dead. His behavior brought disgrace to everybody around him. He lived beyond the margins socially, religiously, morally. He had nothing left. Why would anyone want to step into that space? Because if you step into the space of someone who has no honor at all, you may now start to lose some of your honor. And why do you want to lose your honor? You go to places where you can get more honor. You don't go to places where you lose honor. And yet Jesus steps into a space of dishonor. He chooses to take all the honor he has and spend it in a place of no honor. It makes no sense in that cultural context. Yet Jesus doesn't live that way. See, he knows all his honor comes from God the Father anyways. He's not concerned what the crowds think about him. He will walk into a space of no honor. And what does he do? He restores the man's honor. He removes his shame. At the end, this man is now clothed in his right mind. He's no longer legion. He's become himself. His honor is back. He's given dignity. He's reintegrated. He's re-identified as a real person once again. Jesus risked his honor to restore another man's honor. Jesus doesn't live by our rules, does he? Because he doesn't care about the honor of the crowds. He knows his honor comes where God the Father tells him about himself, and he can walk confidently into any circumstances whatsoever. And the readers at that time were going, what is he doing when they start reading the story? Why would a man with so much honor step into a place of no honor? You start to get to know Jesus, don't you? He's not here for his honor. He's here to do what the Father has asked him to do, and he'll step into any space at all. Secondly, though, is this aspect of patronage and reciprocity. It was a culture of patronage and patron-client relationships. There were very few. A lot of the patronage was with respect to money. There were very few wealthy people at that time, and so you counted on the wealthy to give money, let's say, to you as a person to get up, or if a wealthy patron could give actually money to a whole community. Maybe they would build you a stadium or a library or something, but you relied on the patron. This patron-client relationship was huge. And it was this dance that was played. The patron would give, and then you as a client, as a community, then you would give honor back to the patron, right? If you as a community received a lot of money from a wealthy patron, you might put a statue up that looks like the patron to honor them. And it was a beautiful thing how the system worked. But you could actually give someone your influence or give someone, the connections you have. That could be what a patron could do. But a patron is helping the client. And by default, the client now owes the patron. But it wasn't a negative thing per se. The patrons wouldn't necessarily demand you give back. It was just assumed that you would honor the patron. In fact, as I studied this more and read, there are 6 things that actually the best and highest patron how they would live their life. And if you did 2 or 3 of these things well as a patron, you'd be actually a pretty good patron. Listen to these 6 things that are part of it. First of all, good highest patronage. There was a super abundance. A scale of the gift is massive. The bigger it is, the more amazing of a patron you would be. But secondly, your giving motivation is solely based on the benefit of the receiver. You do not give to get as a patron. If you simply gave because you just needed it, I'm not expecting anything back, that's a beautiful patron. Thirdly, as a patron, you actually don't even wait for the person to request it. You actually anticipate what the need will be. Oh, I see that you have that need. I'm going to give you, and the person's going, I never knew you even knew I had this need. And the patron anticipates. What an amazing patron that is. Fourth, the gift is completely out of proportion with the recipient's merits. Like, who would even give to this person? Like, yes, you might be a patron of someone who's kind of been successful in business. Maybe their building burnt down, so you're a patron. But there was a kind of a good sense that something good would happen out of it. But a patron who gives, and the gift, the portion of it, that's so outside of the merits of the person being given to it. That's an amazing patron. Fifthly, the gift actually fully achieves what it's supposed to do. The patron just knows it, and the success of the gift is just fully realized. And finally, the gift places no obligation on the recipient. And if you did 2 or 3 of these well as a patron, you were amazing. If you look at the story, Jesus was the most highest patron of all patrons. He actually checks the box on all 6 of these things. His gifts are beyond what we make. He comes before we even we know the gift. What's the one scripture say in Romans? While we were still sinners, Christ died for us. He was giving before we even knew what we needed to be given. And we don't deserve it at all. And look at the story, right? Jesus gives to this man. This man, why would anyone even want to take a chance with him? He had 0 honor left. He was completely full of shame. There's nothing evident that he could actually do anything back to anybody. Yet Jesus chooses to step in and to give this man life again. No sense of return, no sense of anything, and he goes. He gives him back his sanity. And at the end, he's seated, clothed, and in his right mind. And he's got his name back. I love the story of Jesus, the patron. And all throughout the New Testament, you see this whole idea of patron-client is everywhere. This is how they saw Jesus and what he gave to us. They saw patron-client in all this stuff. And if you really understood what Jesus did for you, of course you want to return back honor to him. Of course you get that. That's how society works. But the third lens they would look through in this whole thing was that of kinship. That of kinship. Your people determine your status. Your kinship is everything. Your family is everything. You do anything to protect family. And the man had no family left. He was cut off from all kinship ties, from his actual family, from his village, from his religious family. His family basically said to him, "You are dead to us." He's living among the dead. And people reading at that time were saying, why would anyone want to care with him? He's been rejected by kin. If your kin rejects you, you have nothing left. And what does Jesus bring to us? What did the early Christians call each other? Brother and sister. Jesus is redefining family. He's redefining kinship. He gives this man his identity. He even says at the end, no, don't follow me. Go home and declare. Go back to your family. I've restored your kinship. Go back and enjoy the beautiful of what we want to enjoy. You see, in the kingdom of God, family is bigger than bloodline. And Jesus was beginning to recreate what this is supposed to be for them. Kinship is now a shared experience of grace. Kinship is a shared experience of grace. The greatest patron has given us all we need, and we accept that. And by the sheer acceptance of that, I now have a larger family. And we're called to live as family. And Jesus restores this man's family. He loses the old name Legion. He gets his name back. And this is how they would see this idea, that a man who had no family left, why would Jesus even go there? And at the end of the story, he has family back. Kinship was everything back then. Even for the lost cause, Jesus comes in and restores kinship. Such an amazing story of Jesus. And finally, the whole aspect of purity. Oh, purity was such a huge thing. There's all these purity laws, right, from the Old Testament that were brought in from Moses and all this stuff. And we sometimes kind of laugh at them, saying, oh, those rules and regulations of the Old Testament. The reality is we have our own set of purity laws, right? Like as someone enters your house, you have some purity laws in your house. You may not realize it, but whether or not someone's allowed to wear shoes in your house, that's a purity law. And if they do and they're not supposed to, and you're kind of judging them, right? They're washing shoes in my house. Like, how dare they do that? Like, and you right away lose respect for them without even realizing it, right? Whether you wear a hat or not when you pray. It's a purity law that we've kind of created for ourselves. Is it a good thing, bad thing? It just is. But purity laws there were everything. They regulated your access to worship, to community, to God. They were important. And the community all recognized them, and everybody followed along. And we all embraced the purity laws so we could have a way of acting and engaging with our worship. And this entire scene is impure. Everything about this scene is impure. For the Jews, they're reading this, they're going, who would ever go close to this place? First of all, it's among the Gentiles. Okay, that's impure to start with. I don't care how wealthy or good or clean their home is, you're Gentiles. But secondly, he's among the tombs. He's touching the dead. Big set of impurity. Thirdly, he's possessed by evil spirits. He's spiritually impure. Fourth, there's pigs everywhere, the most impure animal there is, and the man is without clothes. He'd be dirty, bodily emissions that came out of it. Like everything about this scene is 100% impure. You cannot find any purity, even 1% of purity in the space. And the reader's looking at this going, who would go there? Like, I'd have to stay out of the temple for years before I'm pure again. Why would I do that? And Jesus crosses the boundaries. He touches impurity, and he's not defiled by it. Jesus chooses to enter into the impurity of this man's life and this man's space, and it does nothing for it. In fact, Jesus' holiness is contagious. The whole space is transformed by his presence, and he, with his very presence and words, reverses impurity because of his power and who he is. It's all pushed away. And he chooses to go where no man wants to go. But only he can enter into this space and push the impurity away, and this man is restored. He sends the pigs back into the water. In one sense, it's a visual expression of I'm taking the impure and pushing it in there and sending it back into the chaos waters from where it came. And the impurity is pushed away and it's gone. And now this, like those movies you watch, right? Where it's all stormy and cloudy and the ships are going and all of a sudden it all goes away and the sun rises and the water's calm. It's like, what just happened there? And here is Jesus stepping into the most impure space. And by his very presence, impurity cannot stand his presence. And it runs. And the man is seated, fully clothed, in his right mind. What an amazing story. Do you see it? Do you see yourself in this? Like, let's walk through this in our own lives. That's the man, but how is honor and shame impacting your life these days? Are you trying to chase after honor and try to get people to like you and vote you in? Cue the social media ads. It's kind of funny. I would, if I want to feel good with myself, several years ago when I was more active in social media space, if you want people to like you, simply post a new picture of yourself on Facebook. Like. Everything else you post, kind of thanks. But if you post a new picture, or me with one of my grandkids, oh, that gives me a recognition. I get some honor then. And we can play the game, right? How exhausting is that? How exhausting is that to try to get the community to like me? and my emotions go up and down based on my perceived impressions of what the community says. Or we seek honor through status, through a certain job or education. We want to be seen. All these things we do to try to get honor, and we're exhausting ourselves. Or we live in our shame. We live in the stories of our past. Hidden abuses or addictions or mental illness or our failures or lost relationships, and all these things are there. And I can tell you for myself, if I'm having a good season of life and I do something stupid, I recognize it. And what happens is when that one stupid thing comes up, it seems to open the doors for all the stupid things I've done in life. Ever happened to you? Maybe it's only me. And I go back to when I was 10 and 12 and 22, and I'm going, all this, and I'm sitting there going, oh, Lord, am I even worthy? And I feel shame, right? And what an exhausting way to live life. But Jesus fully understands. He can restore. You see, Jesus, the week before he died, he rides a colt into Jerusalem. It's the height of his honor. Everyone's laying down palm branches and cheering him on, and the disciples are excited because if Jesus gets honor, they by default get honor because they're connected to him. It's the community. At the height of his honor, he goes to a cross, and that's the height of his shame. From the height of his honor, 7 days later, it's the height of his shame. And yet neither phases him. He's not chasing honor. He's not avoiding shame. That means nothing to him. He doesn't care what the crowds think of him. He's doing what the Father has asked him to do because the Father declares, you are my son. I'm proud of you. How often are we chasing after the crowds when all we need to hear from is God the Father saying, I love you? And we play the game of honor and shame all of our lives. And God is saying, isn't my love enough? Isn't my love enough? And how often are we fighting this battle? Our identity is such a big thing, isn't it? Oh, we so much want people to accept my identity, who I've chosen to be, and we're trying to get people to cheer me on, and all this stuff is there, and yet God just says, I love you. Why is that not enough for you? And Jesus steps into this moment for this man, and he restores him. He restores his honor. But only Jesus can enter into that space. When will we sit in the beauty of that and accept what Jesus has done for us? But second, patronage, reciprocity. Our world is full of just networking, right? And we're in a you and me system. We have to I do for you and you do for me. And we're trying to live kind of a version of patronage and client relationships, right? And you feel the burden of owing people things. Let's say they've given you something. Oh, I got to return them back or do this. Or you're chasing after people that owe you. And we're in this mouse and cat thing, and we're sure we want to do things with excellence and do them well and all that piece, but we're living in this version of I give, you give back, or you gave to me, I got to give back, and did I give enough, and am I worthy of it, and you gave me, and I'll never be able to return that to you. Now I feel bad about it because you were so kind to me, and you don't tell me anything back, but I'm wondering, do you need something back? And we live in this space of patron, client. And Jesus gives this to us freely. He gives to us freely. Can I live in the beauty of it doesn't matter what's around, and maybe I didn't give enough back, and maybe you're mad at me, and I've done the best I can, but at the end of the day, Jesus says, you are enough. I give freely. He's the patron of all patrons. Requires nothing back from us. Yet by default, because of that, we want to give back, don't we? We want to give him honor. All the songs we sing in the scriptures, all praise and honor and glory be to our God. Why would we sing that? We can only sing it in the most beautiful way once we understand the beautifulness of God's patronage to us, giving us all that we need, beyond what we need. We never deserve it. We'll never pay it back. And yet we beautifully accept it. As I said before, God demonstrates his own love for us in this. While we were still sinners, Christ died for us. He's anticipating what we need. Are you living in this back and forth world, trying to prove yourself constantly, trying to give back, trying to get some people to give back to you by trying to be kind? What a crazy way to be generous to people when you expect them to return it back to you. Isn't it much more freeing to be generous as Christ was generous? To give without strings attached and allow God himself to give whatever honor he wants to give to us because of how we've been generous. But why am I afraid to be generous when I've been given so much by the patron of all patrons? And this man experienced it. And it was such a beautiful thing. Well, the third is kinship and our identity. Oh, how many of our families are divided and estranged? You know, we're trying to find it, or we're trying to find another community to be our kinship community. You know, or maybe a political community or a lifestyle community or a culture or our race or whatever it is. We're trying to find and be connected and be approved by this group. And the communities are great. We're called to be a community as a church. And yet, if we do not live our community on the basis of our shared identity and grace, we'll all be in and out, because you won't always be the best person in your community. But if we base it on we're all saved by grace, I guess none of us is really better, are we? Because we've all received the most amazing patronage from God the Father. And if we can do that, if we can live our lives that way, even when I make a mistake, and you have to hold me accountable for that piece, and I'll feel horrible about it, but you'll say, hey, let's keep moving forward because we're all saved by grace anyways. None of us deserves this. What a kinship group would that be to live in? What peace that could bring us as people working together. Our identity is not our past. Our identity is not what people say we are. Our identity is based on being saved by grace. And this man got that. He understood it. And at the end, he was sitting at Jesus' feet, clothed and in his right mind. What a beautiful story. I want to be clothed and in my right mind. I don't want other demons to be getting in the way and I lose who I am. I'm trying to be this person. And what's your name, Matt? Oh, I am this. And I lose the fact that I'm a child of the King. And that's all that matters. That's my foundation. I can live the rest of my life that way. But finally, purity, impurity. Oh, how much do we live in a sense of being impure? How much of our culture, with our cancel culture, political correctness, or you do certain moral failures and you're gone, and we always live in this tension, don't we? Or we might believe, I'm just too dirty for God to really love me. I know he loves me, but does he really love me? And I'm trying to be pure and kind of make my way to him, and is he really there? And Jesus says, I enter into the most impure spaces because it doesn't touch me. And he enters those spaces and he frees us from the need to try to act a certain way to get his presence. Oh, he guides us, he shapes us, he molds us, he guides us into new ways of living. I get that, yet don't never ever think that I did too much wrong. God probably doesn't love me as much today because of what I just did. Jesus says, I stand in the middle of the most impure spaces. It doesn't touch me. And I can free you from that. I don't know about you, but I want to live in the beauty of this. And I want to be someone who chooses, like Jesus, to cross over. Because this man at the end was so excited with Jesus. I want to follow you, Jesus. And it's the default mode, right? Because of patronage and reciprocity. Of course he wants to follow Jesus, to give back and declare to Jesus. And Jesus flips the tables. And he says, I gave to you. Now he sends the man out to be a patron, to give good news. He rises him to patronage himself. And he calls us the same thing. He sends us on mission. He sends us to cross over as he crossed over, to enter into those spaces where people need patrons to know who Jesus is, to care for them and love them, and to have as their focus, I'm saved by grace, and that's all that matters. So what's it going to look like for me? what will it look like for you? What will it look like for Mosaic Church? To be a crossover church, to enter into spaces no one wants to not bring shame, but to bring the power of Jesus Christ into these spaces. Only He can bring healing. What do you need to hear today? Jesus wants to enter into your space. He wants to give you honor. He wants you to accept the beautifulness of His patronage. Are you willing to accept that and live in the confidence of what Jesus has for you? Let's pray. Lord, just thank you for the beauty of the story, the chaos of the story. Just what a mess it was. And Jesus crossed, Lord, you crossed over chaos waters. And you stepped into the most impure of places. And because of your presence and your words, freedom was brought to a man who had nothing left, who was as good as dead. And he was set free. Lord, thank you. Father, may I live in the beauty of what you do. May we live in the beauty of what you do for us. May we not live in our shame, because you have freed us from that. Thank you, Father. Thank you for the family that we can be because of our shared experience of grace that you have brought us. May that give us the confidence we need to be all you've called us to be and to live into. We are grateful.